Hello everyone, you're welcome to this news hour live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. Some inhabitants of Campo and other areas in the south region of the Republic of Cameroon are urging the Cameroon government to renegotiate the mining agreement signed with the Chinese company. They are raising concerns over the fact that their opinions and desires were not taken into consideration and that agreement will violate their rights, and they are asking for a renegotiation of that agreement. Inhabitants of several parts of Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, are expressing fears of a worst situation that could emanate from the heavy downpours during the rainy season as a result of a flood. Many of the inhabitants of several parts of the city of Douala, including those in Douala 5 and Douala 3, as well as Douala 4 municipalities, have been suffering seriously year in, year out as a result of the heavy downpour and the absence of adequate drainage canals in their areas of residence. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us at this news hour on Equinoxe television. We begin this news here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, where city dwellers in several parts of the town are expressing concerns and fears of the damaging consequences of flood that often hit different parts of the town during heavy downpour, and they are raising concerns as far as the construction of adequate drainage canals is concerned. And we take you to a case in point in this newscast in Bonamusadi, Douala 5 subdivision, where a drainage canal has been seriously reduced in size by anarchical construction of houses. Details in this report by Malaglory.
He is striving to prevent a looming danger. With the fast approaching heavy downpours of the rainy season, Pierre, other inhabitants of Bonamusadi and the Douala 5 subdivision at large fear the worst. In Pierre's house, there are still signs of floods of the last rainy season. Runoff up to about 2 meters, putting his life and that of his son at risk.
J'avais donc demandé à l'enfant de se mettre en sécurité. Il est monté sur la table.
According to him, the problem is this waterway, initially designed to be 12 meters large, is less than 5 meters today. It has significantly reduced, and Pierre throws the blame on his neighbor, proprietor of a hotel that occupies a portion of the drainage pattern. He says this hinders the flow of high volume of water during heavy rains. As a result, the runoff often floods the whole area. We went seeking the hotel owner's response to the accusation. When he refused to respond to our question on camera, we captured his reaction with a hidden camera. He denies all wrongdoing, saying he also suffers from floods when it rains, pointing an accusing finger to a nearby building. Our effort to get in contact with the owner of the 4-story building were fruitless. The Douala 5 mayor, the Douala city mayor and the Wuri prefect are yet to respond to complaints submitted by Pierre and other inhabitants of that part of Cameroon's economic capital, Douala.
Inhabitants of several parts of the Nyong and Kele Division Central region of the Republic of Cameroon decrying the exploitation, and more particularly illegal exploitation of wood in the area, and the failure by companies, the exploiting companies, to meet the demands of the people, notably in terms of road rehabilitation, for example. And they are decrying the fact that the trucks have destroyed some of the bridges in the area of residence, making circulation quite difficult, but still more or less an uphill task. Smanji can give a report.
Rough days lie ahead for the population of Makot in Mesondo subdivision of the Center region. The only bridge used by the people to transport their foodstuffs to town has been broken. They told me that they have an authorization to pass, and I said it's not good. They are passing on a spoiled bridge with such a vehicle. The woman then said if I don't leave, they will hit me with a bulldozer. Unfortunately, some of my brothers came, so we blocked the road. As the driver wanted to pass, by all means, he destroyed our bridge. The broken bridge has already started giving trouble to the inhabitants. I have harvested almost 800 bunches of plantains for the past days, and I was in search of a car to transport them, only for me to come and meet a broken bridge. It means the poor can't also live in this country. The bridge was broken by some alleged illegal timber exploiters in the locality of Makot. Exploiters are destroying our roads, and we no longer have means to leave the village to town. Some of these exploiters don't have authorization. We generally call them here Warap. When we caught the woman, she said the delegate knows about their operation here, and since people in the village can't read or write, they said it's okay. We are calling on the government to intervene. The illegal exploitation of wood has a negative impact on the people of Makot, whose food crops can't reach town again.
Inhabitants of Campo in the south region of the Republic of Cameroon want the government of their country to renegotiate the terms of the mining agreement signed with a Chinese company, Equinoxe, on the exploitation of iron ore in that part of the country. They think that their opinions were not taken into account, their desires and of course their rights will be violated if that agreement is maintained. They also think that the country stands to benefit little or nothing from the exploitation of iron ore in that part of the country. Details in this report compiled by Malaglory.
That natives of Caribbean Campo have contested the agreement signed between the Cameroon government and the Chinese company Equinoxe on the exploitation of Lobe iron ore. The inhabitants see the agreement as fake due to the absence of the government authorities in negotiating with the people. Were they waiting for comments on social media to come down to meet the population for a frank talk? Were they to start exploiting without talking to the people concerned? The Cameroon government and the Chinese company are the ones signing the convention, but yet the government representatives are not here to talk with the people. What is Equinoxe interested in exploiting something which do not bring them enough profit? Signed on the 6th of May 2022 in the presence of some government officials and the Chinese company, the exploiters used the opportunity to convince the inhabitants through the media on the advantages of the exploitation to the people. With today's clarification, Equinoxe is anxiously waiting for the final signing which will permit us to start the project. Determined to achieve the objective, the Chinese company organized a press briefing in the locality. This in order to convince the population into accepting the offer.
The former president of the Evangelical Church of Cameroon, better known by its French acronym EEC, is no more. Reverend Professor Samuel Henji Toya died earlier today in his home, in his house in the Melon. It is in the Mongo Division, Littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon. And Abila comes back to the servant of God on his mission, his pastoral work, and other things surrounding the man of God who was contested by the church when he took over the helm of the EEC.
Reverend Pastor Jean Samuel Henje Toya was former president of the Église Évangélique du Cameroun, the AAC. He was elected to head the religious institution in 2013, succeeding Pastor Isaac Batterman. His mandate was highly contested by his opponents after the election. They questioned the pastor's legitimacy to head the ECC. And as the crisis persists, the professor of anthropology would finally table his resignation as president of the church in December 2017. According to him, he will prefer to step down if that the only means peace must reign in the church. Pastor Jean Samuel is said to have visited other ECC congregations in the West region in a bid to reconcile warring factions and ensure that serenity is maintained within the EEC. The deceased pastor made one of his public outings on Equinoxe television, where he expressed worries that some lay faithful were over getting involved in church issues. He insisted he just meant well for the church because he belongs to the church.
Je suis pasteur, je suis fils de l'église, mais j'ai été conçu dans un presbytère.
I am a son of the church. I was conceived in a presbytery, was born in a presbytery, and I did my education in the church, though I did other studies. My dad was a servant of God and of the church, and me too I am, and I also wish that one of my children would also serve the church.
Et j'espère qu'un de mes enfants le sera aussi.
News of the sudden death of Pastor Jean Samuel Henje Toya came as a shock to most of the Christians he leaves behind. Pastor Henje Toya, who headed the Église Évangélique du Cameroun for over 3 years, hails from Yabasi in the littoral region.
Reverend Professor Jean Samuel Henje Toya is no more. When he took over the helm of the church as the president, that was after the 2009 Synod meeting and elections, he was contested, fought and rejected by a fraction of Christians and pastors of the church. And here is an extract of what he told years ago on Equinoxe television concerning the crisis that followed or erupted after his election at the helm of the church, and about the vision, the global vision of the church. Take a listen.
L'évangélique du Cameroun n'est pas malade. Il y a peut-être des malades dans l'église évangélique du Cameroun, mais ce n'est pas l'église en tant que telle.
The Evangelical Church of Cameroon is not sick. Perhaps there are sick members, but not the church itself. Maybe we, the pastors, are sick because of failure to fulfill our missions. We are not doing the first assignment given to us by Christ because of some interest and stakes. We have allowed the preaching of the gospel for unity and peace, and are holding on to other things, including material things, power, and knowledge. And because of that, there is an incursion of the powers and mechanisms controlling such things into the life of the church.
Les biens relatifs au savoir, etc. Et naturellement, parce que nous glissons dans ce champ-là, il y a une forme d'inclusion des pouvoirs et des mécanismes qui régissent ces pouvoirs dans la vie de l'Église. Le synode général de 2009 et les élections de 2009 ont été un changement.
The 2009 General Synod meeting and elections brought a change of paradigm in the life of the church. It was a change to meet the exigencies of globalization. And we cannot continue to function as if we were in the times of ideological and identical blocks. The world today is a global village.
Les blocs identitaires ou quoi que ce soit, etc. Le monde aujourd'hui, sur le plan de son fonctionnement et sur le plan de son développement, est appelé à être un monde d'interpénétration, à la fois sur le plan idéologique et sur le plan identitaire.
The new mayor of Kondo Titi in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon has been elected. Margaret Ndiba was elected today during a council session that took place in Kondo Titi, and she's taking over from the former mayor who was killed in an ambush by armed men recently, an ambush that led to the death of the divisional officer of that administrative unit. We'll be bringing to you greater details and images of that election in our subsequent news editions. Now, in news out of the Republic of Cameroon, the first flight due to take asylum seekers from the United Kingdom to Rwanda was cancelled minutes before takeoff after rulings or legal rulings. On Tuesday evening, that's yesterday evening, up to 7 people had been expected to be moved to the East African nation, but the flight was stopped after a late intervention from the European Court of Human Rights, and the intervention led to fresh challenges in the UK courts. In the meantime, the UK had insisted that the flights to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda was going to take off yesterday. News.
Migrants were set to board the first flight after UK judges rejected last-minute legal challenges from human rights groups on Monday. But media sources quoting government insiders suggest this number may fall to below 5 due to ongoing court disputes. The United Nations Refugee Agency has strongly criticized the UK's new migrant policy, but Prime Minister Boris Johnson says his government's decision will help deter illegal channel crossings.
And what is happening with the attempt to undermine the Rwanda policy is that they are, I'm afraid, undermining everything that we're trying to do to support safe and legal routes for people to come to the UK and to oppose the illegal and dangerous routes. That is what we are trying to do. That is the essence of our policy.
Now let's head to London and speak to our reporter Vincent McAviney. Vincent, so can you explain this new policy and what are some of the legal challenges that it's facing?
Yeah, well, just to bring you the very latest on this before I explain it, I understand that the 3 legal challenges that have been taken place today have in fact failed in court. That plane is now on the runway and we're expecting 8 people to be on that first flight to Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. Now, to be clear, this policy isn't just for these people to be flown to Rwanda to be processed there, to decide whether they are verified asylum seekers and have the right to live in the UK. If they are deemed to be asylum seekers in the correct legal definitions, then they will in fact stay in Rwanda. They will be provided accommodation in Rwanda, healthcare, opportunities to try and get work. There is no route for them to come back to the UK. It is essentially a one-way ticket. This is a unique deal that the UK government has struck with the Rwandan government. It is going to cost some hundreds of millions of pounds to do, but the Prime Minister and his government are adamant that this is the right way to tackle the problem in the Channel.
But only 8 people on this flight tonight. Why is the UK government still pushing for this flight to actually leave tonight?
Well, the UK government is adamant that this is the right policy. Now, there is the fact, yes, that you say there are only 8 people going on it. There have been these legal challenges on individual cases because of safety fears, despite...
And that's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Cameroon-born legal mind, human rights defender, major proponent of decolonization, Barrister Neneba Innocent Akufo joins us from New York. Barrister, you're welcome.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Babile. Thank you so much for getting me on your platform today, and thank you for always getting me on this very useful platform.
We begin with issues concerning plans of deportation, not only of Kenyans or Rwandans from the UK, but Africans in general. This is an issue that came up in the news in the United States before the recent measure that was taken to protect Cameroonians who are seeking asylum in the United States. What do you think about these plans of deportation of Africans back to their home country? Their home countries?
Well, if you're talking about the UK issue there, I think it's a mixture of mostly immigrants from very poor regions of the world coming to the United Kingdom to seek political asylum, protection from persecution or other natural disasters. But on the other side, we know and we do remember what happened to Cameroonians and other Africans that were, after some of them exploited their legal ramifications here in the United States and could not actually get the cases done, were sent back to Cameroon to face torture and persecution again. But again, about the Rwandan issue here, I don't think this is a refugee policy that Boris Johnson is doing with the United Kingdom government. This is a financial transaction between the United Kingdom and the government of Rwanda, because it has nothing to do with the refugees. Because if you look at it, why would they take these people from London and ship them 6,500 kilometers in the heart of Africa, which is about 4,038 miles from London to Africa? Rwanda would not be the safest place for these refugees to go to. If they wanted a proper resettlement of these people, it should either be in the UK or other European countries, not in Africa, where Rwanda itself is facing a lot of problems. And as I said, this is a financial transaction between Boris Johnson and the government of Uganda, because the UK government spends about $10 billion every year to man these refugees in its country, and about $5 million every day for food and shelter. So if they can send about $140 to $150 million to build infrastructure in Rwanda, it's a safer way for them to save money rather than keep these people and grant them political asylum in Britain, where they were heading to in the first place. Because when these people left their countries, they were heading to where they thought they would find protection and safety. And that was the United Kingdom or other European countries. If Boris Johnson is saying that this is a trafficking issue, this is something that it has existed before, long before this time, long before now. Why is it only now that they are trying to stop these people from coming to seek protection in their country? And again, it all goes back, it boils back to this imperialism and neocolonialism and colonialism, all the policies of capitalist societies that have made most of these institutions in foreign countries unfunctional in such a way that the citizens become so deprived, they cannot really function in their own communities, and they try to find safety somewhere else. And when they come to the source of where these issues are coming from, where the problems are coming from, they send them back again to Rwanda. I mean, Rwanda just went through a civil war. It's not been long ago. We know all that. Why send them to Rwanda? And you have to understand this. This program, this particular project, if they land in Rwanda, they still have to be vetted and see if they qualify for asylum or not. If they don't qualify for asylum, if they deem that one of these people is, okay, let's just assume that they belong to a terrorist organization, what does Rwanda do to that person? Do they send this person back to Britain, or do they send them back to their home country? That's on Rwanda. Because it is
Barrister, earlier,
yes.
The head of the United Nations Refugee Agency condemned the plan by Britain to send the first flight of asylum seekers to Rwanda yesterday. And Filippo Grandi said that the policy would have sets a catastrophic precedent. And he also indicated that other countries may follow the example of Britain. What's your take on the multiplier effect that could come out of this kind of policy by Britain?
Which is absolutely true. The UN chief is saying it. I mean, he is true to the point, because once you set these examples, what will stop the French from sending people back to Cameroon, for example, to resettle them in Cameroon, when Cameroon also has its own political and social problems there? They would do the same thing that Britain does. And this is what is wrong with this, this so-called first world countries. They create these multinational institutions like the United Nations and craft the laws and all the policies and turn around and violate them when it doesn't suit them. You understand, Britain was part of the European Union. They had this particular trigger clause where if it gets to a particular point, you break it and you come out. And that's why they left the European Union. You remember when President Trump was the president of the United States about a couple of years ago. He decided to stop migrants from coming to the United States and staying in Mexico because they were not, he did not deem them refugees in his own way of defining the word refugee. So that's the same thing that Boris Johnson is doing in the UK. What will stop the French from doing it tomorrow? Or what will stop the Italians from doing it? Because that's where Africans are flocking. That's where Middle Easterners are flocking in Europe, because that's the nearest and the closest landmark for them to reach and get and grant, and seek safety and protection. But when they get there, they are being refueled back to countries where they might face persecution. And again, this is all designed by the West to fail, and it's failing before their own eyes.
All right, moving away from that, I want us to come to issues concerning the Republic of Cameroon, your home country. And I want us to analyze recent statements made by the Senior Associate for Africa, the Regional Director of the National Democratic Institute, NDI, Dr. Christopher Famoyo. And he said, he first of all made a remark that President Paul Biya is the oldest president in the world. And he said that he has kept the desperate threats together during his 4 decades of rule through old-style or autocratic methods such as patronage networks, excessive corruption, and the instrumentalization of the military and security services to squash or repress dissent and extract total loyalty to himself. What do you think about this assessment of President Paul Biya's 4 decades of leadership by Dr. Christopher Famoyo?
Yes, sir. I think I read the caption of that particular precept you just read on your show here. And I come from the last point you made. We cannot solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created these problems, and that's Einstein. And the one thing that's more dangerous than ignorance is it's arrogance. If you have a system of government, if you have a group of people who have led their country down the drain, then there is just no reason for you to expect that they might one day resuscitate this particular edifice back again into something positive. I've always said it that the political, on the tombstone of this government, what would be written would be the war that they left behind. It is not really, what policies they crafted for 40 years. I think if you look at the Chinese military philosopher Sun Tzu, who is, credited with drafting the art of war, he said, if you're fighting a very formidable enemy and you realize that your people would die, your people would suffer in order, and in the end you will still lose this war, the best thing is for you to build them a golden bridge for them to move. I think it's past time. I mean, Mr. Biya Paul has done a lot for Cameroon. I think it's past time for him to actually leave and let others take over, not the CPDM party. I mean, he's done his own in that country, but if the country is going down where it is, then that's what will be written on his tombstone. He led the country into war, and he will leave war in the country, because I read somewhere that, your true leadership, skills of leadership would come up when you're no longer there. But if you're there and whatever you've led all through your life is crumbling before you, then there is just no reason for you to stay in power. There is something called a transition. You can transition and still seek solace in your country and stay there in peace, and nothing would happen to you, rather than get a whole group of, or you stay on slogans. You preach on slogans every day, and your country is going down, an edifice which would just never come back again. Because if you're looking at the war in Cameroon, the civil war that's going on there, 40 years in power and you end up with a war. Let me tell you, what created that war? It is not English-speaking Cameroonians. What created that war? It is the institutions that have been set up in Cameroon that have been so oppressive in such a way that there is no freedom. Freedom in the east of Cameroon, freedom in the west of Cameroon. That's what it is. Because if somebody picks up a gun to kill the brother or the sister, then they have been put against the wall. That is not what growing up in Cameroon was. We grew up in Cameroon trying to build a society together to make that country look a good place. But if you see people and children, military on the other side, children on the other side, they're all picking guns against each other, then it will be difficult to build a Cameroon that everybody had envisaged sometimes in the past. It will be a Cameroon that might, put us apart somehow. But again, Mr. Biya, for him to save face and his regime, I think they should look at Cameroonians, come to the forefront, talk to the right people, and get that country back on its right pedestal.
Now, about the prevailing situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, Dr. Christopher Famuyo, speaking to the Guardian Post, said that at 90, it is time President Paul Biya awakes from a slumber to realize that people have died in their thousands. Lives are being destroyed daily. A sizable percentage of Anglophones believe that he and his regime are bent on destroying their educational and legal systems and their culture and way of life. And so this conflict needs to end immediately. These are the words of Dr. Christopher Famuyo. And the question that President Paul Biya's followers will be asking is, with all what he has been doing so far, all the efforts with the major national dialogue, the military and all other efforts, has he been sleeping?
Well, again, what Dr. Famuyo is saying, he is absolutely right. And what the other people are talking about, a major national dialogue, it was a farce. It was something that was not designed to work. Just the way this dispensation called Cameroon was designed from the get-go, it wasn't designed to work in the first place. I had given you this and again, I'll bring this point because he mentioned about legal system, educational system, and all that stuff. I have asked you this question one time. There are two different legal systems existing in Cameroon, and that's what we grappled with through from independence to where we are today. And we've never been able to function, articulated the way these things are supposed to be. We've never been able to function. If you produce goods under a common law system, you are being protected by that legal system. If you take them to a civil law system, what law transpires? We don't know. That's the unknown that's been ruling Cameroon for more than half a century. And that's what he is saying. So in order to function, the only other thing is to subjugate the other part. And that's what Francophone Cameroon has done. That's what they've done through the assistance of its master, the French government, and all the other people within the Francophone system. Because if you take a law like Ohada, that it's something within the Semak region, if you take that particular law, which rules in Cameroon, tell me how somebody functioning in Bamenda or in Boya or in Muyuka or in Mutengene, in a common law jurisdiction, how are they going to apply Ohada in their particular system if they grew up embracing and loving that particular law in their particular jurisdiction? So these systems were bound to fail from the get-go. So if you're talking about a major national dialogue that was fomented in the heat of war, because its foreign partners were telling them that you have to do this to save face. And that's what they did. They were not doing this to work, for this thing to work, because if you look at the people they invited from the diaspora, they were all, some of them, I might not say all because I don't know, but some of them were actually just going there for lip service. They were not really going there to really propagate peace in Cameroon, which is what people always want. And I had said it, sit with your brother. If it means that you can no longer live together, this is a perfect example when, modern Africa should really look at it and see where we can do it and poke the eye of the West and say, yes, we can sit as peoples, as brothers and sisters, and look at something that you did wrong in the past and fix it and work that way. And even if it means fixing this thing, that Cameroon stays a separate country from the other Cameroon, we can do it. We can do it as neo-Africans, as modern Africans, and because they just together to die. That's
now,
what
for the past, Barrister, for the past close to 6 years today, there have been repeated attacks on protected areas or areas, institutions protected by international law in conflict situations. I'm talking about churches, hospitals, schools, and in the recent case, the Kumba District Hospital was set ablaze by unidentified individuals, and now the United Nations is calling for investigations to establish those responsible to identify the culprits and punish them. What do you have to say as a legal mind concerning attacks on such areas, hospitals, schools, churches?
which is it's a gross violation, because those are areas that there are no-go zone when there is a war, because you bring your war prison, your casualties there to be treated, and the population goes there for safety. I mean, before Manfe, which I thought that's what you were trying to refer right there, which you intended to refer, I'm sorry, is the most recent casualty. But before that, one happened in Kumba, where the hospital was raised. And now in Manfe, the hospital has been raised, and the United Nations is sending fact-finding people to come and look for solutions that the Cameroon government, if they are sane and decent, they should be able to find out exactly who perpetrated that particular incident in Manfe. You see, but if you look at the little girl, baby Indiale, that was shot by a military officer, sometimes last year, what has become of that child? I don't want to resuscitate some of these memories again, but what happened to that child has been shoved down, because we don't know if that guy was ever brought to justice. But if you're bringing the United Nations to come and go to Manfe to investigate what that you cannot investigate in Cameroon, you should know. I watched the mayor.
It's actually the United Nations asking that the situation or the incident should be investigated.
Well, that is true. They've said that many times, Mr. Babila. What has happened? Nothing happened. It's not because the United Nations is saying it that makes it any different from the Cameroon government trying to investigate its own particular people, because they should know who caused it. Who, you know, I mean, where's the security? Where are the services that, you know, can go into localities like this and investigate what actually transpired? So if the United Nations is calling on the government of Cameroon to do it, I don't think they would do it, because
all right, you know, Barrister Nineba Innocent Akufo, human rights defender, legal mind, major proponent of decolonization, joining us from New York, United States of America. Thank you so much for your time today.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Baldwin. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Goodbye.